Well, happy Friday to you. So, the business of geospatial is what I usually do on a Friday, and what I'm finding I like to do is just to really review the week. So, the title of this one is a review of this week's hot geospatial topics, and there were some interesting things, as ever, that came up this week. And I remind you, I spend quite a lot of my time talking to folks in the geospatial industry, those in the established world of GIS and remote sensing, and those who are in the new world who are focused on some of the new data that we're collecting from Earth observation, satellites, all the way down to terrestrial levels and artificial intelligence. So I talk to a lot of people in lots of industries, and we're all kind of coming together as a group. We are now all beginning to focus on location-based data. So where's my forward screen? So there's some things that happened this week I wanted to point out to you. Some of you may know that I have a tendency to post things on LinkedIn, which are sort of topics that come up that I find that are worth sharing. One of the things for me is just not only tracking about what's going on in the wider world of geospatial, but also I kind of gauge what people are actually interested in from this. So it's interesting to see what things resonate with folks. And I wanted to share a couple of things with you here that really resonated with people. This was the biggest one. I'm pointing the wrong way. Um, if you look at the bottom, this is the LinkedIn post that I put in. There were over 6,000 people that actually showed interest in this. And then the numbers in LinkedIn, the sort of the views of the post is just generally an indicator of, I don't know how the algorithm works, but to me, what I read, that gives a level of interest. So Satellite View are a UK-based startup, and as you'll see if you can read the text at the top, they're going to launch some satellites, constellations, which I'm going to look over and read it, which allow us to do imaging of thermal footprints of buildings. Now, the implications of that are huge, but we're still in the early stages of the process. So I think their future path is fascinating. And again, there's clearly a lot of interest in what they're doing, but we're a little bit away from making that a reality. But it was fascinating to see how much interest there was in that. As with this item as well, now I work and increasingly work with the sort of venture capital private equity world, the investment sector, sort of as a geospatial advisor consultant, as those guys try to understand the opportunities. And frankly, geospatial is now on their radar. They're beginning to realize they may not always be using the word geospatial, but location-based data, particularly space and Earth observation, is getting a lot of attention. There's a lot of money pouring in to those sectors. Now we're, of course, as geospatial folks, on the downside, as they call it, of satellites and space and EO. So we're really interested in the data that's being collected, whether it be imagery, whether it be radar, SAR, etc. But I posted this up, which was really a reference to Altout Data, as it's called. So the hedge fund guys are looking, and I won't go into the details of why it's called Altout Data, but they have their traditional data sources that they've used for the longest time. And now they're trying to look at alternative data sources, and those alternative data sources increasingly are more important to them. And when I talk about the fact we're now collecting lots of real-time data, it allows these guys to pull in these big data sets and actually make faster decisions, get insight and make quick decisions that can mean a lot of money to them. So Altout Data is important to them. And geospatial is a core part of the Altout Data world. So it was interesting to see that over 1,000 people found this article interesting. It surprised me. A lot of articles are very, very geospatially focused from the audience who sort of look at the things that I post, but it's quite clear that there's a growing interest in that world of Altout Data, and the finance world is paying attention. So it's interesting to look at actually who was viewing that. So again, I write and I share things on geospatial, but there's a wider audience coming to it, which is great. I'm very happy about that. But worth noting, and if you want to read the article, either of these two articles, just go to my LinkedIn feed and you'll see links to both articles. I didn't write the articles. These are me referencing really interesting articles that I've sort of found out there. Okay, on to another theme. This is kind of one I beat on a little bit, but it is front and center in my world, because what I'm looking at is the growing importance of geospatial, and it's not if it's happening, it's when it's really going to take flight, and we're still at an early stage of what I call the geospatial revolution. So where is geospatial today? I would say it's very fragmented. I would say it's incredibly confusing, and I would say we are in a state of information overload. So we have, and again, apologies for repetition, but we have the existing well-established geospatial world, which is GIS, remote sensing. Sometimes I like to call it Geospatial 1.0, just as an arbitrary label. And we've got the emerging world, which is really taking advantage of miniaturized sensors that are collecting enormous amounts of data, IoT, space, satellites, etc., etc. Um, and AI and machine learning can process that data. Again, we're in early stages of that, but it's meant the market's ever more fragmented. There's the traditional geospatial industry over here, and then there's this world of startups and disconnected groups over here. There's agencies in the middle that provide standards, they focus on policy, etc. There's the investment community I just spoke about. So incredibly fragmented, which means it's incredibly confusing, and there's so much information out there. It's hard to know where even to begin. So I think that's the nature of things. So where does geospatial want to go? I think there's really there's one statement that really stands out, and again, from the many conversations I've had this week, that keeps coming up in conversation. How do we get into new markets? And you know, GIS, remote sensing, have had a long history. They've always sold into those that get the value of geospatial. That is the GIS folks and the remote sensing folks and others. But it's generally experts it's sold into. They get the value, and we're really good at talking about to those guys about, this extra piece adds more value to what we've already got. But fundamentally, there's a lot of people, and this is really where the big opportunity for geospatial is, that don't get it and don't really care about data or technology. And I've harped on about that a little bit before, but there's a challenge to actually open new markets, and it's been a long-term challenge. But now we've got the traditional sector trying to open up new markets outside of the sort of the public sector, which is sort of the core of where a lot of this work's done, into the commercial world and beyond. So how do we open up those new markets? It's an ongoing conversation and question. And I would say the reality is nobody's yet cracked the nut. I think that we still are taking old approaches and old ways of thinking. It worked before, so why doesn't it work now over here? And we kind of are repeating the same pattern over and over again. Again, those value conversations are critical and understanding the customers. But these are CEOs of companies, potentially. They have no interest in maps. They have no interest in all of the stuff that we talk about in the geospatial community. And this applies to the existing traditional world and to the new guys, because I'm seeing the same pattern in the new guys where they're talking about disrupting GIS and all these different things. I mean, frankly, we have to have a new conversation, and it needs a new approach. And I fear in isolation, we're not going to be able to do that. So my belief is we move from a fragmented to a connected world, and I've mentioned this before, and again, the details are being worked out by myself and a group. Um, but I think we need a global geospatial network and accelerator. Again, I'm not going to go into the details there, but this is really a dot connector. This is connecting the old and new worlds, or the traditional and new worlds, with all of those that have interest in discovering and solving problems. And I feel we live in such a fragmented, confusing world. People don't know where to begin. If you're selling solutions, you don't know where to start in terms of getting in front of the right people and having the right conversations. If you've got a problem that needs solving, you don't even know where to start to have that problem solved. Is it one organization? Is it multiple organizations? There's still a huge focus on products and how magical products are. We still in the geospatial world don't really talk about that journey, problem discovery, value, and the journey to a solution. It often involves multiple entities, not just one. So that's what's in the works, and that's what I've been building. Again, this week, it's been validated multiple times that that's something that I think is needed, and we're working with folks to try and enable that. So more on this to come. I'll actually finish with my contact information. Feel free to reach back to me. I'm always interested in what folks are doing. Love to talk to you if you've got innovative products that you're building, or sorry, solutions. I won't say products, solutions you're building. Love to talk to you if you've got a problem that you're trying to solve. I'm always interested in what's happening in this rapidly evolving, highly fragmented world, but hopefully myself and others can try to help pull this stuff together and move us to a more connected world. So thanks for watching. Happy Friday. Enjoy your weekend. More next week. Thanks.